into the finishing stages of this project. So I told you I was going to do a lot of the beard off camera, and I still intend to do that. Today I want to work in some more of the hair. What I'm looking at here is, if we look at this picture here that I'm working from, so I have some ceiling tiles. This is a doorway behind me. You can see the hinge is missing from the door, so there's no door there. This is a wall going this way, and this is a wall coming back out toward me. And this is right up in the corner, so you can't really see where that bend is. So those tones, those values are pretty similar. It almost gives a weird illusion there, like as if it's a flat wall, but these are hanging in a weird way. Because that's what I'm saying, I'm gonna leave it there. So I have this sort of gray area above the hair over here, in this area. And over here it gets much darker. And I'm gonna use that to contrast against the lighter colors of hair here. So that'll help those pop out, and we'll be able to see them better around the edges. Over here you can see there's a lamp, a ceiling lamp, and I'm going to work that a little bit more, try and get that to look a little brighter. It is pretty bright right now because I left it the white of the page. And you can see on here where the tiles are, during the edges, that light is kind of shining on those spots. And then over here, this is a door, there's a doorway, and then it comes back down to that brown chair. So I'm going to put in some of those tones, and you'll see how it's going to start to help make my picture pop forward by not ignoring the background. Some of these tones here I can continue to sharpen and make darker. I don't want it too dark though, because I want to keep the difference between the real dark over here, what I'm seeing in the hallway, and the wall. You see, when I'm working pretty fast. I don't really care that I'm getting some messy in here. And the reason I don't care about that is because, first of all, it's not pure white. So I'm going to be putting in some tone on that. Even though it's painted white, there's some shadows and some dark areas there as well. So that's part of it. To try and get these walls to look a little differentiated, I'm doing this straight across because it's parallel behind me, and this one's to my side, so it's kind of on an angle. So I'm shading it on an angle to make it look like it's in perspective a little bit. So that should help a little bit show that it's two different walls, even though I'm not seeing that really on my drawing. Now on this side of the door jamb, it gets really dark. So I want to use some of my darkest tones over here. Probably not going to work as quickly as I could work in the other areas. And also, sometimes I'll just freehand these things, other times I bring out a ruler. These ceiling tiles, they're coming in at a small angle, and I want to get those in. So I'm going to give myself lines to go by for where those are. And they're going to be broken up a little bit. The way lines in perspective going back work, and there's actual formulas you can do to get these right, but what you really need to know is that the further away they get, they're going to be a little bit closer together. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it, so I'm not taking a lot of time trying to do calculations to see how far it should go. I have a few of them showing before I get to the light. And we're getting closer and closer to the light. Now this is probably at a wrong angle. So I could erase that out, as well as this one. We want them to be parallel to this. We're going to need to keep that. And these might be getting too close together. I could always shade over them a little bit. But I just want to give myself some guidance, some lines to go by. And then right over the thing here where the light is. And then the door jamb is also at a slight angle, so I have it drawn in at this angle here, but I'm off there, so I'm gonna get that, fix that as well. All right, so underneath that bottom line is gonna be dark like that. Then I'm gonna come back in with my eraser to get that white door jamb. It's not very white because it's in the dark area of the room. So there should be a light shade on there, but definitely differentiated from where it gets dark with the brown of the door, just to make it stand out. Also, if you look here, I've got some vertical lines going on here and here. They're meeting at a vanishing point. So this one is almost straight up and down, and I started kind of drawing that one in over here. I can put in some lines for that. Again, this is not really a part of the portrait, so I can do a lot of this off camera, but I did want to get some of that darker shading in around the edges of where my hair is so we can start dealing with the hair, because that darker shading is going to be meaningful. This here, where it gets kind of lighter over here, there's kind of a sign on my son's door. So that's why we're seeing that get lighter over there. And that's going to run right off the edge of the paper. And I can continue that out again and work that so that it looks more done. Right now I'm just working fast to give you an idea. So I want to go around the hair, and I want to keep a tiny amount of space for where those highlights are. And I'm going to finish that up off camera. So now you can see I got the hair framed out pretty well. I'm going to really continue working on getting in some individual shading and hairs. I want to be working with a really sharp pencil, and I want to work with a good quality eraser at the same time. So I got this dark area in here, and right above that is a kind of a white hair section. And in here we have sort of grays working their way out. And this is where it kind of gets pretty light. There's some hairs coming across here. I've got some sections of hair coming down into this area here, and then they're continuing across over here. Again, as I told you, I don't want you to think about drawing each individual hair. I want you to shade. I want you to pull out some important strands with your shading and with your eraser. My hair is really light because it's mostly gray at this point, and just a hint of individual hairs is probably enough to get yours where it needs to be. So long as you get those major areas in and keep working it, you'll be successful. All right, up in here I've got some interesting areas to work with, and the movement is interesting because I got it coming down here, and then it looks like individual little clumps of hair going in that direction. Getting that movement in the hair is kind of really critical to what we're trying to do. So if you see things like that, get them in. Get in the shading around it. Get those hairs that are doing some crazy different things. You definitely want to see those. And again, if working with shading around my lighter color hairs, you'll be able to see more and more of the hair start to emerge from the picture. Back in here, it's kind of a little wild and crazy, and some of the hairs are kind of escaping into that area. And you see how I'm pulling in some of the dark from the background into that to make it look like this is jutting out into that. That'll be helpful. Over here, like for example, I have a little bit of a hair sticking out here, and I can erase out a little area and then put some more back in to make that actually jut into the black. Where these are, it's kind of all too parallel and not looking very realistic. So I want to layer over some of that with things going in different directions. This kind of layering really helps develop what you're trying to do with the hair. My lighter hairs, as they stick out into the light area, they look even lighter. So getting those, and then kind of disappearing a little too. So kind of getting them there and then taking them out of it with the eraser is probably going to help that look like the hairs are there, but at the same time the light is kind of just illuminating them. Alright, over in this section we've got some things going on over here. Again, we want to get some of those light streaks and white hairs in there. Getting something that's sharper to work with for that would be helpful. So I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to go get some more erasers. Okay, I'm back. So what I did was I grabbed two different kinds of erasers. And this is from Pentel. It's a high polymer eraser. It's basically plastic. It's white plastic. You can see right now, brand new, it has some pretty sharp edges in it. So if I come in here with these sharp edges I should be able to make some thin lines in the black in the darkest areas. That is definitely going to help me get some of what I'm looking for. Okay, so I am going to continue working this. Below where the light is over here. Again, I'm using this side, which is a really thin edge right now, to get some of those hairs. I don't want them to look too parallel though, so I got to keep moving it around. This other eraser is from Faber-Castell. It is made of a material, I'm not sure what it is. It feels rubbery, more than the white plastic eraser feels a little more plasticky. But it's supposed to be free of dust. When you know when you erase, you get all that eraser dust. This is supposed to be able to work freer of dust. So it's got a nice sharp edge. I've not used this type of an eraser before, but I can see that it's working pretty well for what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to continue working throughout the beard. Over on this side, in order to be able to use the eraser effectively, I'm going to have to put in some more shading on the hair here and up at the top as well. So I'm going to shade in some underlayers. Remember, I just left them white because we wanted to kind of map out where those white hair areas were more than the other areas. But if I don't put some undertoning, I'm not going to be able to use the eraser effectively to pull anything out of it. Same thing in the beard. Not much of in my hair is actually pure white, light grays. There is some whites though. But you see how that almost kind of disappears into the wall there? So if we're looking here, the wall is significantly darker than the hair, but not as dark as the ceilings over here. So I should possibly go even darker on the wall here, but not, again, I don't want to be too dark. And I'm just going to do that right now in enough of an area where I can differentiate between the hair and the wall. I don't have to go all the way up. That's going to help that stand out a little bit more. And then when I start to pull in some of those hairs with the different erasers, you'll see that it'll give me what to let that stand out with. And we want to make sure again that things are going in multiple directions. Hair is a messy thing, especially during social distancing where we're not able to get always to the barber and stuff. You know, I mentioned before that I cut my own hair often, but even at that, I'm not doing it as often as I normally would because I have no reason to get out of the house. So bringing in some of those hairs and having them exit my head a little bit over the wall is going to help that look that I'm going for. It's kind of a little messy look right now, so probably should look messy in the drawing. And as I said last time, I did cut my hair since this started, since I took that picture, so it doesn't look quite this messy now, but it is definitely a little messier than I like it to be. And you want the black lines that are surrounding the hair to kind of blend in as shadows, not as line. And if you take out an area you don't like the way it came out, just go back in and shade it again and keep working it. So you can keep working this over and over again in both directions, and the more you layer it, the better it's going to look. Alright, so the top of the hair is pretty much getting there. You get what you're looking for. You can keep working it and working it, and I will keep working it off camera. Alright, and the same thing's going to happen down here by the beard. I should get some of this neck in. Underneath the beard, there's going to be some shadows. Now, because the light is low, I'm seeing a little bit of a shadow here. This side is the non-light side, so it's significantly darker, and we have this nice dark streak here. Underneath where the shirt is, there is a bit of a dark area, so I want to start getting some of those areas in. What is going to happen is the edge of the shirt is going to make a little bit of a shadow. Light's coming from this side, so it's going to shadow against the skin over there. And then the shirt's going to be black, but even a black shirt has highlights, so we want to make sure that we're getting in the highlights as well. And I'm going to shade right up to the edge of the beard, and maybe even a little higher, because I want to be able to work in the eraser also, because I got definitely have some white hairs coming down in my beard. So I want to get that shading again, darker on this side. Same as this side is darker over here. Get that shadow coming through. And then it gets kind of gradually lighter as it goes along. And again, I'm working faster than I normally would because I don't want to make you watch all that many hours of video. Once I have the shirt shaded in, you can see where kind of the chair stops and the shirt starts. And there's a little bit of a highlight on the shoulder, so that's why I got that in there. These hairs here I kind of penciled in, but it's really going to be white line over the shirt. So rather than try and draw around them all, and I can do that a little bit, get some of that shirt in between and around them, I'm just going to mostly just shadow this whole area, and I'll put those back in with eraser. So once I have this section shadowed in the way I like it, remember I said it was hard to tell where the chair ended and where the shirt starts. It's just kind of gradually getting darker and darker and darker on this side. It's in the shadow more, so it's more of a shadow on this whole side. Using the side of the pencil, going a lot faster than I normally would because I want to get some of this in so that I can get to the tutorial part of putting in the beard. But you can see the neck is definitely going to have some darker shaded areas, but then there's the light side as well as the dark side, and there's highlights that I can put in with the pencil eraser or with one of these erasers now that I have some better erasers. I don't want you to think you can't do these things with the pencil eraser. You can. It's a little harder if you don't have the sharp edges left on your pencil eraser. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to give out art supplies while you're home, so you may need to figure out what is the best eraser solutions for yourself. I don't want you to be asking your parents to go out and buy art supplies at this time. I would rather you make do with what you have. And again, I'm going to keep taking stuff out. The edges I'm going to try to leave sharp for the hair. And remember, I can take the cardboard off and use the other side for sharp edges too. But I do want to get some tone in here and make sure that I'm getting a good kind of looking neck shape with the shadows where they need to be and the highlights where they need to be, as in the picture. Alright, so this side is kind of lighter, except for where that shadow from the edge of the shirt is. So I'm going to tone this down a little bit. Okay, and leave this side a little darker. So now I'm going to turn off the camera. I'm going to get this mostly done, and then I'm going to come back for some finishing touches. So I'll see you in a little while. I wanted to show you the edges of the eraser are starting to get dull and dirty. So I just take a clean piece of paper and just rub it against the edges a little bit without too much pressure. I can get back some of that clean, sharp edge, and then I can continue working. So if you're in need of sort of sharpening, that's a good method. It's just to drag the eraser on some clean white paper. And you can do that with your other eraser as well. As you can see, I'm getting some more of the beard in, and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm getting closer and closer, and you can see I put in some tone, I erased in. Now I'm going back in with the pencil to kind of thin up some of those white lines and to make them appear more hair-like. They're often too thick to be hairs. Reinforce some of the dark areas, shadows in behind them. Let some hairs cross over others, which is what happens in a beard or in hair. So I'm just going to keep reinforcing until I feel comfortable. Try and find out where some darker hairs live and put those back in after erasing them out. And you notice I still didn't really do any blending in this picture, and I'm okay with that. Some people really feel the need to blend, and I'm okay with that too. But again, my teacher, my mentor, really preferred that we didn't blend, or at least he said that to me. I don't know if he gave that same advice to everybody else, but maybe he saw something in my style that he felt worked better when I didn't blend. And it kind of gives me a unique style because most people blend And my pictures end up looking different than other people, which is kind of a goal of art, right? You don't always want everything that you draw to look the same as everybody else. You want to be your own unique artist. So I think it's kind of a gift that he gave to me that I sometimes share with my students. So I'm getting that in. I'm going to finish up here and give it one last look over. And we still didn't put in the glass. It looks like I'm wearing frames but no glass. So we got to put in some of those highlights as well. So I'll be back for that. Okay, so you can see I'm pretty close to the end now. Yes, there's still a lot I can do on this. I could probably work on this for many more hours and still not be fully satisfied. I did want to show you that in the last minutes, as you work a pencil drawing over time, some of the highlights that you create will kind of get, just because your hand rubs against things, as your hand's rubbing, you're going to lose some of your highlights and some of your dark areas are going to dull out. So you're going to want to go back in and put those back in again. So I'm going to get those highlights in a little brighter than they are right now. And also I wanted to do the highlights on the glasses. Now if you see, as I said before, pretty much a lot of my eyes are actually obscured out, but if I didn't draw those under there, I wouldn't be able to do this accurately. So above here I've got a nice bright highlight. And I'm thinking the surface of the glass now. So I'm just going to drag the eraser to try and get what I want. To get some of that in. I've got another square over here that, as I said before, is kind of even a little brighter than the one over there. And those should stand out and look pretty different than the highlights on the face itself or on the body. I want to get those looking more squared and gleaming and brighter. There's one coming off in this direction over here. There's a little one over here. Getting these little details at the end of a project. Softly, I'm going to put in some of the skin highlights that came out over time. There is no eyeglass highlight over there. I kind of lost too much of the tone over here, so I'm going to put some back in. And I can keep working back and forth between where the eye is and where that highlight. In the teeth, I see that kind of got smudged quite a bit. I want to get those brighter highlights in. Again, the teeth really are not pure white, so we don't want to be as bright as those bright shining highlights. And we want to make sure we get all the dark areas in, because that really helps things pop out. So going back in and reinforcing the highlights and the darkest areas, the darkest shadows, darkening them up again, is going to really help when you're close to done. So when you think you're done, give it a little bit of a look over and see where there's a bright highlight on here that kind of went away on the nose and on the nostril too. And just getting those in the different spots is really going to help make some differences here. On the lips, remember, don't forget the lips are kind of shiny, so often there's highlights on there that kind of fade out as you're working. Reinforce some of the dark areas as well. Underneath where the lips are, you want to make sure that the shading is there so you can begin to see the under part of the lip. And get some of those shades in the last minute. And as you work it and you keep working it, and as I said, I could probably work this for several more hours without any problem whatsoever and still find things I need to do. You want to make sure that you're satisfied with it in the end. Notice that I have a piece of paper under here, so if I'm running off the edges, won't mark my desk up or your kitchen table or wherever you're working. Those kind of considerations are important. Remember I talked about the black of the shirt having different highlights in it as well. I see a pretty bright highlight over in this area. I'm not sure what caused that. Highlighted almost looks like I'm wearing a seatbelt or something. I'm not. And there's a bit of a highlight over here, and that's probably too bright. But to get the shape of the shoulder and stuff, I want to get those contours and curves. The collar has a bit of a different texture than the shirt itself. So even if you can't see it too well, you want to get in the thickness of the shirt, the collar, and you want to get in the shape of the collar, and then blend it, not blend it with a blending stick, but just by going in a different direction with the rest of the shirt. Again, you want to think about where the wrinkles are happening, where all kinds of things. This side is the shadow side, so it's much darker. So I could just keep going darker and darker and darker with this. Like a 4B or a 6B or an 8B pencil would probably be better for this area, because my 2B will only get so dark. But you can see I'm getting pretty good darks out of it. So this is how we get our self-portraits finished up and the way we want them, and get them, published out there so that people can see our work. I'm going to continue to work this a little bit, and then I'll put the finished picture